Hey everybody, how's it going? With Throne of Eldraine coming out, I wanted to do a limited review of the archetypes the Wizards of the Coast has said are in this set. I'm not going to be doing a top commons and uncommons by color. I'm really going to be looking at each archetype and each color pair and some of the cards that I think make it work. It's going to be a long video. I'm going to have timestamps in the comments below if there's a certain archetype you want to look at. One thing to know is I'm doing this video before the set has come out, so this is a guide to help you in your pre-release in those first few drafts. It's definitely possible information will change as we draft the set more. These are just the cards I'm looking at and the archetypes that interest me and the cards in those archetypes I think you'll be looking out for. So with that, let's jump right in. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is just there is a cycle of common lands available in each color. I'm not going to be spending a ton of time on any individual cards discussing them, but I did just want to say that I think all these are playable in whatever, if you're playing those colors. I wouldn't splash for them, but there is a drawback that they'll enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more of the land type, but the ability to basically put a spell on a land is a huge advantage, and I would play any number of these that you get if they're in your colors. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is there is a cycle of hybrid cards that are 4 CMC for every color pair. I'm not going to go into the specifics of all these. I'm going to say that if you are playing the colors and if you pull cards that draw you into those colors, you are going to want to be playing all these. They're different levels of power, but some of them they all synergize pretty well with what the decks are trying to do. And I would recommend taking them and putting them in your deck. But again, there's not too many that really pull me in a direction. Also, the casting cost looks intimidating, but it's actually pretty easy if you're playing those 2 colors. You don't want to splash any of these. They'll be near impossible to splash, and you don't want to be playing like a blue-red deck and then try to splash Arcanist Owl on 4 blues, because it's going to be turn 8 before you get that done. Okay? So the next thing we're going to discuss is the Izzet deck. So Izzet in this archetype, it cares about drawing a second spell. So you're going to want cards that allow you to draw a second spell in a turn. That includes your opponent's turn if you have a way to draw 2 cards. So the number 1 card I think you want to be looking for this draft is Fairy Vandal. This is a 2-mana 1/2 flash flyer, and when you draw your second card each turn, put +1/+1 counter on it. This is a good card by itself, and it's really a giant payoff if you're drawing your second card a turn. Obviously, the gold card, Improbable Alliance, is also going to be good, and that's going to pull you in the direction of this deck. This deck takes Opt, which is already an okay card, and just makes it extremely, extremely good. The other thing I like about this deck is you get access to some of the better removal in red, like Scorching Dragonfire. Run Away Together, I think, is a very powerful card in blue that you're going to be playing. Witching Well is not the best card, but the fact that allows you to draw 2 cards, so you can do this on your opponent's turn and put a counter on your Fairy Vandal. Same thing with Bloodhaze Wolverine is another creature that cares about it. Steelgaze Griffin is a card that I'm not in love with because it's a 5-mana 2/4 at its base, and it doesn't pump it permanently. You don't want to be playing too many of these, but it is a card that cares about if you draw your second card. And like I said, I'm just going through discussing the cards that you're going to want to be looking to put in a deck. These are the cards that are going to pull you into a deck specifically because you're looking for synergies all the time. Turn to a Pumpkin is basically blink in an eye. Return target landline permanent to its owner's hand and draw a card. Okay, and here we're seeing one of the first keywords in Throne of Eldraine, which is Adamant. And Adamant triggers if at least 3 mana of 1 color was spent to cast a spell. So that's going to incentivize you to play some monocolored decks or play some like 12/5 land bases to really try and get Adamant triggered. Some cards are going to be a lot better with the Adamant on the stack. Other cards are not going to really care too much about them. But if you Adamant a turn to Pumpkin, for example, you get a food token. So that's Izzet. You're looking for drawing a second spell. I personally think it's going to be pretty powerful because drawing spells in Magic is already a powerful effect. I think if you can get some Fairy Vandals, you're really doing it. Making Opt better is very strong, and then you get access to some of Red's great removal like Scorching Dragonfire and Slaying Fire. So that's what you're looking for in Izzet. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is Boros. Boros' theme is a Knights Go Wide theme. So you want to be drafting red, white, aggressive creatures, drafting knights, things that make it better. The big concern I have for this deck is that there's no trumpet call in this set as far as I can tell. There's no, white instant, red instant, pump your whole team to get through. You're really looking for cards like Inspiring Veteran to pump your team, or cards like Sierra Aelin, the Lion's Claw, to pump your creatures. I don't think this deck is really going to get there. We'll see. I like Brimstone Trebuchet a lot. It's just a pinger that you can untap it when you play a knight. I think Ardenvale Tactician is one of the cards that's going to make this deck tick, because you can tap out the 2 target creatures for its adventure cost, and it's still just a 3-mana 2/3 flyer, and it's a knight. You get access to some of Red's great removal. Like I was saying, Scorching Dragonfire is probably one of the best commons in the set. So any red deck you're playing, you're going to want that in. I'm going to talk about some of these cards again. Slaying Fire is good. Obviously, Joust and Red Cap Melee could go into an Izzet deck as well. Joust is a pretty strong removal spell, especially if you're in a knight deck, the ability to pump your knights. But these are some of the commons and uncommons that really stand out to me if we're trying to make this deck work. Rimrock Knight also I think is worth mentioning, just being a 3/1 2-mana card. But again, the fact that there's no pump spell for your whole team really makes me nervous. Okay, the next deck we're going to talk about is Orzhov, and Orzhov's theme, according to Wizards of the Coast, is knights and sort of grind out your opponent. And I think you can really get there. I think there's a lot of things that punish people, the longer the game goes. I got them all up here. Black has some amazing removal in this set. Bake into a Pie is a common, 2-mana black, destroy target creature and create a food token. Reef Soul is pretty strong, and then Epic Downfall, being able to exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or greater. I mean, that's just like so stinking good. Valmire Knight being a 1/1 Death Touch with an adventure. And talking about adventures, I didn't mention it earlier, but adventure spells are basically, you can cast this adventure part from your hand, and then the card goes into exile, and then you can play the creature part. So in this case, you could pay 2 and a black for Profane Insight, you draw a card and lose a life, which is not, the best. 3 mana, draw a card and lose 1 life, but the fact that you're getting a 1/1 Death Toucher after that for 1 mana, really makes it playable. Order of Midnight is a card you're going to see a lot. It's going to be a very powerful card that you're going to want to be taking soon, and it really helps you ground out your opponent because it allows you to pay. The best way I heard it, is it is a Gravedigger that has flying and can't block. You can pay 4 mana to get a creature card back from your graveyard to your hand and get a 2/2 flyer, which is just obscene if you know how good Gravedigger is. Again, Ardenvale Tactician is in this deck. Really helps you just grind out opponents, being a knight. Smitten Swordmaster is a card that could help you in the game. Same thing with Foreboding Fruit. These are ways you can actually drain your opponent and hit them in the face. Obviously, you can also draw the 2 cards from Foreboding Fruit, but you can also do damage to your opponent. Archon of Absolution is just going to be a pain in the butt. A 4-mana 3/2 flyer, protection from white, so if you're playing against white, it's just gas. But then the fact that creatures can't attack you or planeswalker you control unless the controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. Like, that effect's going to be so annoying, and you're going to be able to let these games go long and really recur your knights, keep bringing them back. I like this deck because it has access to Black's removal. I like dirtling around. I'll talk about Forever Young real quick, which is put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library, draw a card. So the fact that you draw a card is great. It's the first half of basically 2 mana, put a creature card into your hand from your graveyard. And then if this is late game, you can just, be putting your Order of Midnights back in there, your Archon of Absolutions, your Ardenvale Tacticians, and play those all out, and then play your Smitten Swordmaster later and just drain them all. And, it just looks like a fun deck to play. And the fact that Black has such good removal is why I'm excited about this deck. Okay, the next deck we're going to talk about is Rakdos Knights. And what Wizards of the Coast has said is that Rakdos Knights is about equipment on knights, and that definitely stands out with Steel Claw Lance equipped creature gets +2/+2, and if it's a knight, the equip cost is 1. Regularly, it's just equip 3. And that's a very, very powerful card, and if you get a lot of these, you're going to end the game extremely quickly. But what I don't really see is, any creatures that benefit from having equipment, anything that helps you cheat equipment to play other than Steelclaw Lance. Like, I don't think Black-Red actually cares too much about knights. I've got some here, showing the knights, but what Black-Red has that other colors don't have is its access, in my opinion, to the best removal like common and uncommon. And so I think you could really take a game that, even though Black-White is supposed to be the attrition knight deck, I think Black-Red, you could actually do some pretty dirty stuff with Scorching, Dragonfire, Slaying Fire, the ability to get, Bake into a Pie, Epic Downfall, Reef Soul, all these great removal cards. That's where I think you want to be doing with Rakdos. Seven Dwarves is on here as well, and I haven't really touched on it before. If you can get, 3 of these, 4 of these in your deck, I mean, a 2-mana 2/2 is not bad. And the fact that, the longer the game goes, you could have more of these creatures out there, and you could be having a 4/4 for 2 mana. I think it's actually a pretty powerful effect. One thing about Seven Dwarves, a deck can have up to 7 cards named Seven Dwarves. That means you can't play 8. Even in Limited, where you're allowed to play more than 4 of a card usually, with 7 dwarves, you still can only play 7. You also get Order of Midnight. So again, we're talking about Order of Midnight. We're talking about Scorching Dragonfire. We're talking about Slaying Fire. These are Bake into a Pie. These are some really, really powerful cards that you're going to want to be taking highly either way. Okay, the next deck we're going to talk about is Simic. So Simic is listed by Wizards of the Coast as being a ramp-heavy mana sink deck. And I don't really see it too much. I see some payoffs like Beanstalk Giant, where you can, get in and get a big fatty in play. Cards like Two Unveiled Tree Folk, a 6-mana 6/5. And Fierce Witch Stalker is a 4-mana 4/4 that when it enters the battlefield, create a food token. So this is a great card, but it's not really a mana sink, and I don't really see exactly what Simic is doing. What I actually see and what appeals to me a lot more is Keeper of Fables is green. And if you can ramp out a Keeper of Fables early, that's pretty exciting to me. And there's also another card, Mistford River Turtle, which cares about non-humans. So I think while Simic, is listed as ramp and kind of mana sinks, I don't see too many of those. The one obvious one here is this Bramblefort Fink, where you can pay 8 mana and make it a 10/10. That's a mana sink. But other than all these cards, other than that, I don't see a ton of mana sinks here. What I do see is the opportunity to make some kind of tempo, Keeper of Fables, ramp into Keeper of Fables, ramp into Mistford River Turtle, and draw a bunch of cards and just sort of charm sleep people away. I think Merrileaf Pixie is a great card. You're going to want to put it if you're in a blue-green deck. And Fierce Witch Stalker is awesome at a 4-mana 4/4 common trample. I mean, it's just great. Runaway Together, I talked about before already. I think it's going to be one of the more powerful blue cards in this set. Usually it's not great to be able to return your creature to your hand, your own creature. And you have to have a creature that you can target with this. You can't just, if your board is empty, target their creature. But when you have the stuff like Charm Sleep, which I think is a good removal spell, but it's enchantment aura, and if they put on your creature, you can bounce it back to your hand. And same thing with adventure spells. Now you can run away together, targeting your adventure spell. It goes back to your hand. You can pay the adventure part and then pay the creature again. So you can, do some chains here that become pretty strong. So Simic, I think, actually is almost like a non-human deck in a way, along with playing big fatties. But we'll see what ends up happening. Outmuscle, I haven't talked about yet. That's the green removal spell. Put +1/+1 counter target creature you control, then fights target creature you don't control. And Adamant, you can give it indestructible. I think this card's fine. I don't think it's great. The fact that pumps your creatures is nice, but 4 mana is a pretty expensive thing. So that's Simic. Okay, the next set I'm going to talk about is Golgari. And Golgari is food token shenanigans. And as you can tell by the fact that I couldn't put this all on one page like every other set of colors, there are a lot of food token synergies here. I am most excited about this color set. I think it's got the most going on. I think it's got the most enabling at common and uncommon. the fact is that you're going to get access to Bake into a Pie, you're going to get access to Reef Soul at common, some great removal spells. And then you're going to be able to get Savvy Hunter, which is an engine all in itself. Malevolent Noble, it's a 2-mana 2/2, but you can sacrifice a food, basically, because it's sacrifice an artifact or another creature, put +1/+1 counter on it. I mean, if you're coming out here with Tempting Witch, making foods, Foreboding Fruit, if you're able to adamant it, which you'd only be able to do that, on turn 5 or turn 6, but still, get some foods, get the Noble big. Tempting Witch, you can drain him for 3, or ping him for 3. Fierce Witch Stalker you get access to. Merryleaf Rider, I think, becomes basically a removal spell, and if you can do I even have more Order of Midnight on here? Yeah, if you can bring it back with Order of Midnight, you can kind of loop Merryleaf Rider with your foods. Bognaughty is a great name for a card, but the ability to pay 3, sacrifice a food, target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn, and then it's already a 5-mana 3/3 flyer, which is, okay. Cauldron Familiar, being able to chain these cards together, access to Epic Downfall. Giant Opportunities may be a little too ambitious. Trail of Breadcrumbs is like an engine for itself, so I think Golgari is one of the decks that I am most excited about, just having so many food synergies, and I would definitely be looking to play it in the pre-release for certain, being sealed and a little slower. I think you could just do a lot of stuff with time. Okay, the next deck we're going to talk about is Dimir. Dimir is listed as caring about the graveyards and the counts in your opponent's graveyard as well as your graveyard. And the gold card for that is Drowned in the Loch. It's a 2-mana, choose 1, count target spell, convert mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy target creature with convert mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. So that is a sick card if you can get a lot of cards into your opponent's graveyard. So how are we going to do that? Eye Collector is a 1-mana 1/1 flyer that when it deals combat damage to the player, each player puts the top card of their library in their graveyard. Merfolk Secret Keeper is your mill card. 1 mana, they mill 4. Once you do that, Drown the Loch. All you have to do is do this one time, and Drown the Loch becomes insane. I don't know if this deck is going to be good, but there are definitely, cards there that can make it happen. Didn't Say Please, which is a great freaking counter spell, because you're going to cast this on their creature and, counter it and say, you didn't say please. So that mills them. Merfolk Secret Keeper mills them. It's just great. And then, like I said, with black, you get access to these extremely, extremely powerful cards. Bake into Pie common, Reef Soul at common, Epic Downfall at uncommon, Order Midnight at uncommon. And what is this card? I can't quite see it. Oh, it's so tiny. Get it? You get access to So Tiny, which is a pretty powerful card by itself as well. Sorry, I had to do that. Sir Conrad is a great, great engine, and if you're really doing it, into the store here at uncommon, spell costs 3 less to cast. If an opponent has 7 more cards in the graveyard, draw 4. So you can make this a 4 mana, draw 4. So yeah, I don't know if this deck is going to be good, but the fact that they are enabling it with cards like Merfolk Secret Keeper. Also, I put Wicked Guardian on here. I think this is it's a 4 mana 4/2 that when it enters the battlefield does 2 to a creature and you can draw a card. I think the ability to play Merfolk Secret Keeper as an 0/4 that blocks things, and then it's a great target for Wicked Guardian. So I think if Wicked Guardian's going to have a home, I think this is where it's most likely to be, being able to hit that Secret Keeper. And people like the mill cards. There are some payoffs here. Drown the Loch, if you can get these, it's an extremely, extremely powerful card. In Order of Midnight, being able to just recur what's in your graveyard, when you mill stuff. So I think Dimir could get there, but it might be a little too cute. Okay, the next deck that we're going to talk about is Selesnya, and Selesnya cares about adventure spells. I have the cards here that you care about adventure spells. Garnberg Squire, whenever you cast a creature spell that has adventure, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Wandermare, I think, is a great payoff for adventure spells. So is Mysterious Pathlighter and Edgewall Innkeeper, being able to draw a card off of your adventure spells. Because the fact of the matter is your adventure spells are cards that you're going to want to play anyway. and the ability to get more value and more gas out of a card that's already a 2-for-1 in a way, I think it's pretty busted. That being said, I think people are going to be very high on adventure cards. I think it could be hard to get into this deck because you really need a lot of good pieces. You can see Wandermare and Edgewall Innkeeper and Mysterious Pathlighter are all uncommon, as well as Shepherd of the Flock. I think Shepherd of the Flock is just awesome because it's a 2-mana 3/1, which is okay, but it has 1 white, return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. So what can you do with that? Well, you can return any of your adventure cards and replay them again, and that will pump your Wandermare, draw a card with Edgewall Innkeeper, right? Mysterious Pathlighter, like doing it again. So I think it's a very strong deck, but I'm pretty concerned about the ability to actually put it together in a draft because I think other people are going to be very interested in these adventure cards, and I think it's a deck everybody's going to want to do. You also don't have the best removal in green and white. So, you look at how awesome black and red's removal is, and I'm just, we'll see how this deck goes. I'd be worried about being able to get into it. Okay, the next deck we're going to talk about is Gruul. And Gruul has a problem, okay? Gruul's problem is that Wizards has said it cares about non-humans, and you can see that with Gruul the Generous. This card is sick. 3-mana, 3/3. Each non-human creature you control enters battle with an additional +1/+1 counter. Awesome. Great. Right? Play that with your 7 dwarves. Busted. Awesome. Okay? But the problem is, the best card that cares about non-creatures, other than maybe Gruul, is Keeper of the Fables, and he's 5 mana. And it's like I want to get maximum value out of my Keeper of the Fables, and I'm worried at 5 mana he's a little too expensive for a bunch of aggro cards that you're going to want to be playing with Gruul the Generous, like Redcap Raiders, right? When it attacks, you may tap an untapped non-human creature you control. If you do, Redcap Raiders gets +1/+1 until end turn. Green and red have this very aggressive feel to them, whereas Keeper of the Fables is, maybe you can just get away with just putting 1 or 2 in your deck at the very top and going pretty aggressive, and maybe that's how it's played. But the other problem it has is green has Sir Farron the Hingehammer, and this is a sick card. It's double green, so it's going to be hard to cast. But, I feel like there aren't too many other decks that really want an aggressive green 2-drop other than here, and the problem is he's a human. So I'm not quite sold on Gruul. I think, again, we've talked about some of these removal spells that you're going to have access to in red. And again, if you can get 2 or 3 Gruul, okay, you're doing it awesome. Sweet, Keeper of the Fables, sick cards. So if you can curve into some Gruul, some 7 dwarves, Keeper of the Fables, and then just burn them out with Scorching Dragonfire, I think that's really powerful. But, I think Sir Farron's a very powerful card, and I just don't know what deck's going to want him other than a green-red deck. But the issue is he is a human. So we'll see how Gruul does. The next deck I want to talk about is, and probably the last color pair really, is Azorious. So Azorious cares about enchantments and artifacts. And there's a lot of those in this set. There's lots of artifacts, lots of enchantments. So there's definitely a lot of enablers. I'm not sure the payoffs are quite there. One of the better payoffs really is Flutterfox. As long as you control an artifact or enchantment, it has flying. So it's really a 2-mana 2/2 flyer a lot of the time. Charmed Sleep and Trapped in a Tower, these are both enchantment removal spells that are relatively good. Glass Casket being an artifact, that'll trigger. So what are your payoffs? Your payoffs are really Shine Chaser. It's a 3-mana 1/1 Flying Vigilance. It gets +1/+1 as long as you control an artifact, and +1/+1 as long as you control enchantment. So you can make it a 3/3 Flying Vigilance for 3, which is great, but it's going to be hard to put that many enchantments and that many artifacts into your deck to have that trigger all the time. I think Animating Fairy is one of the cards that excites me the most in this deck, but the issue is it's uncommon. Because for 2 and a blue, for its adventure, target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature, and you can put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. So it can almost be like a 3-mana, make a 4/4, and then later you can pay 3 mana and make a 2/2 flyer, which is great. The other thing you get access to is Moonlight Scavengers, which is a very, very expensive mana war if you control an artifact or enchantment. I'm not sure how good this is because you're really like Mana War, like you're trying to tempo your opponent a lot of times. Moonlight Scavengers is anything but that. It's already 6 mana. Witching Well is a artifact that can give you some initial benefit and then trigger your stuff later on down the line. So you can see one of my issues is I don't see too many creatures that I have listed here, right? Court or Monitor, okay, it cares about untapping a target artifact or creature you control. It's a creature and an artifact, so you get your artifact bonuses stamped onto a 2 mana 1/4 creature. But I just don't really see, how this deck is actually like closing out a game. One of the things you can do is Mantle of Tides, 1 mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+2. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, attach Mantle of Tides to target creature you control. So that could also go in the Izzet deck, obviously, but it's nice here because it's an artifact. So I think your payouts are Shine Chasers. The problem is they're uncommon. The Animating Fairies are uncommon. I just don't see this deck coming together super easily unless you can get like 6 Flutter Foxes or something like that. So that's all I have to talk about. I tried to get through that pretty quickly, going over the cards that I think you're going to see a lot of. Runaway Together in blue, Scorching Dragonfire in red, Baked into a Pie in black, white, I don't know, Ardenvale Tactician maybe is one of the commons you're really going to care about. In green, that Fierce Witch Stalker I think is probably one of the better commons in green. But I think when you go through making your decks, especially like in a sealed event, you're really going to be wanting to look for those synergies, those 2-color synergies. Where can I get the most value out of putting this deck together? So I'm wishing you all the best in your pre-release events. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.